So I'm going to do the old recording thing. Hi, it's what are we? Thursday today? Monday, July 7th, 6:34. It's the gathering of the Green Committee here. So those folks who wanted to could participate through Zoom. The rest of us are participating here. Let's see, I got with me from here, I'm Dave Blatt, the chair, Kim Duffy, our illustrious note taker here, as well as a member, Chris Holden, member, and we have our guest tonight, John Arno. Oh, sorry, Mr. Passios is coming in now. Okay. See, I spoke too soon. No, I'm just kidding. All right. I'm going to give a second for Mr. Passios to join, and I'll start my. Okay, give a second here. Dave, you getting in? If you can throw me off mute.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave my video off. The signal here is really weak.
No, we were just worrying about you because usually you would have joined already, but no big deal. So we also have Dave Passios, vice chair. Okay, so I'm gonna keep the agenda real simple tonight. What I wanted to mainly do was go over. I was able to, the first time since I now don't work a 9-to-5 job, able to go to the Mass Save Summit that they had at Holy Cross University. And it was a full one-day summit with breakouts and all this other wonderful stuff. A lot of great information. And I wanted to share some of that information here because I think it's going to be beneficial for the town and give us the tools we need to move forward. So what I'm going to do is, if you bear with me a minute, I can go into here and we can go into, oh, hold on. Let me go back into Zoom. We are going to, where's my share? Here we go. Share this, share that, and go into slideshow. Okay. You guys see that in the wonderful slideshow view? Oh, I got it.
Yep, now,
yep. Excellent. I'm going to give a second, let Mr. Stevens, his audio go in and all that wonderful stuff. So I'm going to move this, try to move this out of the way. Nothing's ever in the upper right corner when you have these slides, right? Of interest? Okay. All right, Chris, just give me, Mr. Stevens, give me an okay when you can hear audio.
Okay, can you hear me?
You got it. All right, perfect. So I'm just getting started. I wanted to get you guys together. I want to get the team together and talk about what I learned at the Mass Save Summit. There is a lot of really good stuff that they're offering us to try to get us to become more energy efficient as a town, to really jumpstart us on here. So I'm going to go through this. I'm going to go through quickly. It's not a canned speech, so feel free to interrupt me at any time. It's usually a good thing if you do, but the fact of the matter is, any questions, ask them at any time. I'll let you know if we're going to get into something later on or something like that. So
Dave, before you start, I was going to say, I think it zoomed way in, but now it looks like it's okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So our Green Community contact is Kelly Brown. Kelly's been with us since day one. She's probably one of the few in this group that has been there since day one. Really a good asset, helped us along. She was extremely excited that somebody from Lunenburg finally attended one of these. So if that's how much grief I got for not attending in the past years. From National Grid, there's a gentleman named Sean Cruz. Sean is our contact from National Grid. His job is to help us coordinate different people, different teams, different agencies to try to get things done so that we can start getting to be more energy efficient and basically reduce our carbon. Their thing is reduce our carbon footprint. So if you looked at the fiscal year 25 municipal energy efficiency accomplishments, I'm not going to read all these things, but what you're going to see is bullets 2 and 3 are the most important to me. 109 municipal buildings installed heat pumps, 23 went from oil propane to electric, 86 went from gas to electric. The other big thing here is 165 municipal buildings were weatherized, okay? This is really their big push now. There is lots of funds, lots of programs available for both winterization and also the conversion, to help with conversion and things of that sort. So if you look at the electrical projects, almost 50% of them are still lighting. This is changing. They're no longer giving a lot for lighting. But you can see between heat pumps, HVAC, and variable frequency drives, that was almost another, 40%, 40% of what's going on when it came to electrical projects. The big one you see is in the gas projects. Heat pumps, weatherization, boilers, building management systems. So we're looking at 90% of the money given out was basically to convert from gas to some kind of electric or some kind of more energy efficient that they wanted to give out. They're not letting out residential. This is their overview and plan from now till 2027. Reduce the greenhouse emission. Lots of incentives for customers. I'd like to get more involved and have us more involved in teaching customers in the neighborhood how to go into thinking about heat pumps in their home as they move forward. And weatherization for homes and small businesses. I'm just showing you these. This is kind of giving you a feel for where Mass Save is heading over the next 3-4 years. So K through 12 school decarbonization initiative. This is a big push for them. What they have now is they have this thing they're trying to get towns, whether it's an individual for an individual town or an individual that's shared among towns, for this municipal energy manager. This is somebody who will come in, help us to decide, to look at buildings, to look at opportunities, to look at the whole infrastructure, the whole campus, and help us go into this. It was an interesting thing that I saw there because most towns that I got to talk to that were roughly our same size had a dedicated municipal energy manager / grant writer that they were full-time, and these folks averaged about 10 times their salary in free money for the towns. So I thought that was really
this is really something that's interesting to me. I want to ask Jessica a couple questions.
Sure.
You said that this is a position that was shared with a grant writer, and communities of our size, I find a grant writer position to be a little not normal, I will say, as a standalone. So I'm wondering if by that they mean it was shared with the person who does a lot of grant writing typically in a community, which is like your planner, economic development person. Was it parked there?
Yes, so it was a dual role. They called him as the municipal energy manager, but the idea is that they mainly were charged with finding and developing grants to help with this energy conversion.
I'd be interested in hearing which communities, so we can touch base offline about that if you don't mind.
Sure, not a problem at all. Not Excellent. A problem at all. Thanks to that. So there's enhanced incentives for energy efficiency, technical assistance. Chris, as I mentioned to both of you, there is a free class on building management systems, both a first part that just basically goes over the basics, a second part that goes a little bit more into the detail of programming and what to expect. These are both free classes that Mass Save and through Unitil, they will pay for you guys to do this class, whether it's online. It's a 2-day class, and whether it's online or in person, these classes are, I'm understanding, are really good from talking to folks. And that's that one. Let me keep going. So let's look at I'm going to look at the study, what they're going to be offering for us. Decarbonization scoping studies. To me, this is our biggest issue we have in town, is that we need to be able to scope the projects to be able to have them ready when we find a grant or when grants come available. Chris, you missed out. Mr. Stevens, you missed out. It's hard because it's Chris and Chris, but Mr. Stevens, you missed out on the mini splits when we first got into it, but basically the green community got involved late. But we were able to throw together like 5 entities to manage to get the mini splits, 60% of the project done based on grants. So this is something we thought if we can be ahead of the curve, we'd be much better off. So what they say is they have new study offerings. They help you with choosing a study type and how to participate in these studies. So here is a little bit of a comprehensive look of question or? Okay, here's a comprehensive look of what we got. I'm going to talk about these in more detail, but the benchmarking prioritization, the portfolio prioritization plan is basically looking at all the buildings in the town, looks at the whole campus throughout the whole town, and that will look at giving you a huge overlook of the town of what the system looks like today and help us with when things should be looked at for upgrading, maintenance, and things of that sort. The comprehensive building assessment is now going down into the individual buildings more, looking and scoping out the buildings and getting us prepared for being able to go after a grant with data and other things for the buildings. The decarbonization roadmap is an idea of helping us. So there's a new program out called Climate Leadership. I'm not going to get into that tonight, but I can if you want. But Climate Leadership is one step above green, and it allows for up to $1 million in grants if you can make this. But it's like you have to have a 2030 plan, 2050 plan, and it's really much more detailed than we've been able to do so far. So let's look at the portfolio the PPP. All right, I'm going to move this over here so it gets out of the way this way. Okay, so the purpose of this is a high-level energy use analysis. This is, more than 5 buildings. If this would be every single building we have in town, we can do. I would also look at this as maybe being able to throw in the variable speed drives for the waste management system or anything else that we see as municipality that we might want to throw in and have this. So it'll give you a list of buildings, prioritization. It'll help you to get a report, presentation, next steps together. The big thing is it gets all the information into the Mass Save collection tool. The collection tool is imperative when you want to go through the grant. Once we say go and get this thing going, they say it's 60 days, from the initial engagement to having this study ready. So it's really fairly quick on things like that. This is 100% utility funded through the Mass Save program. So we would work with Mass Save as well as Matt O'Keefe with Unitil on this.
Okay, I was going to ask, so this is funding outside or in addition to our typical annual allotment from Green Communities. This is a supplement, it sounds like.
So actually this has really nothing to do with Green Communities. This has only to do with Mass Save.
Well, but wouldn't it help us to scope a Green Communities project better? To be more
correct. Correct. It's going to help you scope a project, period. So even if it's not a Green Community grant, it might be a federal grant, might be a state grant. If there's a grant available, you'll have it ready because you would have had the data.
Excellent.
Okay. So the next step from that is the CBA, the Comprehensive Building Assessment. Now you drill down to 5 or fewer buildings to do. If we look at this, if I looked at this and I said, okay, what would be 5 buildings? I'd look at the 3 schools, the public safety, and the DPW is like a possibility for 5 buildings that we could do this with. This goes into a full in-depth, going into setting us up for the requirements needed for weatherization, the requirements needed to do modernization, moving from an HVAC, telling you about which system would be best for you, whether it's going to be an air to heat conversion, or whether it's going to be an air to heat, like a heat pump, or whether it's going to be variable refrigeration, or what kind of systems are gonna be. This also looks at hot water and everything else. So it's an in-depth, comprehensive building assessment on here. From there, there's also I'm sorry, let me go back one. This is also 100% funded. So this is, once we could do both. We can have, this is 30 days from the initial engagement to having a presentation together. So this is now going to give you one step past the mass save collection tool. It's going to give you the supporting calculators to have you ready for systems to be deployed. So this is really cool with the fact that it's going to have, really get into like the nitty gritty of how much you're going to save, all those wonderful things you have to have for the green community grants that take us a while to get together because none of us really are true professionals in this. The decarbonization roadmap studies, is that exactly for that? This is a comprehensive town study to look at, everything in town, and looking at the annual energy consumption, looking at decarbonization, looking at greenhouse gases, giving you a timetable for implementing and identifying strategies, compliance documents. This is, you need pre-approval from Mass Save or Unitil. However, this is also usually a copay. So I'm looking at this as, once we had the first two steps together, if we wanted to look at the climate leadership, the decarbonization roadmap would be something we would have to look at. If not, I believe the two first stages will get us everything we need to be ready for grants when grants are available, be ready for the spring, get us ready for the spring Green Communities grant round when we have everything taken care of and we're ready for it. So show me the money, as I was going to say, because that's the important thing. Show me the money. All right. So this was a consulting firm that came in and talked about this. And the biggest mistake that we can make, and this is something we've made, is that we're not prepared. We waiting for the last minute and you're trying to throw everything together. You don't really know which projects are which. You don't really, you see a grant available, you get 60 days to react. And by the time you get all your vendors together, get everything together, it's hectic at the end. So their recommendation is, understanding what's already in the capital plan, what's highlighted by our energy plan, facilities plan, climate plan, what's your high energy, high maintenance or other buildings, and what are your critical facilities, shelter buildings such as things used as shelters, extreme weather events and things of that sort. So this is what you're gonna end up doing is putting together, they say is you build a relationship, build a partner. So here they talk about bringing in the schools, the facilities, DPW, mayor's office, but that would be our board of selectmen and our town manager, grant team, community partners, and basically your national grid team. So here's a little picture of from the Everett small business community, electrifying Everett. They've done a really good job in trying to really getting their fair share of money and things of that sort. So at the end, you're going to build a pipeline. You're going to understand what's your low cost, low priority, high cost, high priority, high cost, low priority, but basically have a comprehensive idea of all the projects you want to do, when you would like to do it, and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. So, short turnarounds. Yeah, we see that all the time. We might not have heard about a grant when it first came out, but we heard about it later, and we're going to be ready because we'll have the information. Grant criteria and scoring, is this a good fit? These folks, they're out there to help. They're telling us that they will help us make sure the project is a good fit. Don't twist yourself in a pretzel. This was what we did when it came to the HVAC system, and bring the partners in. They gave us the data. We were able to work with the team that wanted to install the system. We were able to work with, they brought in a consultant on Unitil's dime to help pay for what we needed and getting everything in there. There's matching funds. There's also in-kind funds available too, through the state and through the federal government to help us with this as well. So I'm not going to repeat this, but this is basically what I just talked about. Okay, so I'm going to get into some of the offer. Any questions so far, guys?
Was Unitil not there?
Unitil, I'm sorry, Unitil was there, but Mass Save is the conglomerate
Yeah.
of Unitil, National Grid, you know, it's all, I'm sorry, it's the conglomerate of all the utilities in the state of Massachusetts. So the Mass Save program is there's a little dollar figure in your electric bill and your gas bill, which goes for that.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to show those contacts, National Grid, there's no Unitil representation. So Unitil here, right? So-
Correct. So- And so the gentleman we have is Matt O'Keefe. Really, he's been on the, at least on the, he's on the building side. And then there's another, I blanked on the name, but there's another name also. Yeah.
By that name.
Yeah, I forget right now.
It's in the minute- it's in the minutes.
Okay.
It seems like the way to do it would be that portfolio view, and then that would give you kind of a good feel of how the entire community is sort of functioning right now before picking the 5 buildings. Is that the way they were saying it too, or were they saying trying to do this thing in parallel?
No, so they are exactly that. They look at it as the PPP is kind of gonna give you a full view of everything you have. Because we might think a certain building makes sense.
Yeah,
They might, when it comes down to it, when we look at the PPP, we'll see that another building actually makes more sense.
Once the engineers look at it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
they'll tell you, yeah. Is the water district considered a municipal building?
Is the water district municipal, Jen, or
No.
is it?
No.
It's private, so then it wouldn't be the water district, but the sewer is part of this. Is the sewer part of us?
Yes,
Yeah, so the sewer is. I don't understand that, but that's okay. Water is, sewer is.
So those pumps that we were talking about for the water pumps, those wouldn't count
No,
then.
so they were actually for wastewater, so they were for the sewer district, was the pumps. And that actually has changed, I'll get into that in a little while, that's changed, they now change the incentives so that those might become more applicable going forward. But there's other grants, I don't know if I tie that into a green community grant. Okay. So I'm gonna go into some of the incentive offerings. So the big thing on incentives was weatherization, heat pumps, and then just traditional energy incentives and rebates available. So let's start with the weatherization. The weatherization, it's, improve the performance of a building. 3 tiers, there's prescriptive for small buildings. It's now less than 20K square feet. This is an increase from 8K. I don't know if we really have anything that's under 20 square feet right now. The custom express is now up to 100K square feet. I felt that was almost every building we have in town. Not sure if there's anything that's above 100,000 square feet. Is the middle high school above 100? I think that's still under. I think it's something like 65 or 70, something like that. And then there's a
Yeah.
custom approach.
I couldn't remember, I don't have it in front of me, but yeah, I think it was just under, it might have been 90.
Okay,
It's up
Perfect.
there. It's pretty good size.
okay, so perfect. So it sounds like, basically everything we pretty much have is in that custom express category.
On the school side, David, is the town side. Ritter Building, Senior Center, Town Hall are all under 20.
Oh, okay, perfect. So prescriptive is actually the easiest way to do it. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So custom express weatherization tool, this is used for both the prescriptive, can be used for both the prescriptive. And that this is a new tool that they have out. This tool I don't know a lot about it. I will try to get you guys hooked up with the folks who have this tool so we can walk through it. But this tool is basically designed to help with setting up projects for this weatherization idea. So you can go in, look, input what you have for the current structure, and it would tell you what you would need to do as far as the different weatherization projects and, buttoning up the envelope of it. So if we look at the prescriptive methods for weather stripping, air sealing, insulation, there's some huge savings in there. The air sealing incentives, $103 per hour. I hope they have 8 guys working. I mean, at least 4 guys working. That's a lot of money per hour that they're giving you as an incentive. But I know it's expensive. I've been through that once already. So an idea there. Incentives are based, then the weatherization for more details, if you're gonna be savings from oil, propane, as well as gas. If you're gonna do more, if you're looking at it as a BTU savings, that's what they're going for there, a firm savings. And all projects over 20,000 square feet must pass the benefit cost ratio, which basically means that the cost has to be, the benefit has to be at least 50% of the cost right now. Which I don't think is too, for some of the projects we have, I don't think that's too hard right now.
Do they mean immediately or like, did they give a time for that ROI?
It's basically just showing the ROI. So usually they look at it as over a 3 to 5 year period.
Okay, okay,
They're fairly relaxed with this. And they'll be, you know, they're looking at it as, well, we talked about it, it's gonna be, you know, if it does it by 2027.
Oh.
They'll be golden for it. type of thing.
okay. Thank you.
All right, so that's kind of it for the weatherization. I'm gonna move into the heat pump incentives. So this is the big push for them. They're looking for heat pumps as well as chillers. We'll talk about chillers in a little while, but the heat pump, well, these are both seen as heat pumps, but there's two different types. There's an air source heat pump. This is what we think of as mini splits. And then there's an air source variable refrigerant flow heat pump. This is where you would have a multi-zone system, a larger building where you had a single unit on the roof, and that was providing multiple units that would be, you know, and just you're adjusting the refrigerant level to go with the loads. So you can see the rebates. There's $2,500 per ton, $3,500 per ton for that. I don't see us doing any ground loop heat pump, groundwater heat pump, even though we might claim we have land. They showed us, what was it? I'm trying to say it's Swampscott did a school and they had 48 loops of ground loop to make up the heat system for the school. And I think 48 was actually low. I might even be closer to 60 if I remember right. But it was something ridiculous. And they claimed it was a 10-year ROI.
They're extremely efficient.
Yes, I know they're extremely efficient, but they're not, unless you're building something new,
Right.
they're not cheap. They had them under the parking lots, they had them everywhere you could see around the whole building. It was, you know, and you couldn't see them because everything was underground. And my feeling was, God forbid something happened, and you'd have to start ripping up parking lots to fix it. That was not gonna be fun. So this is, I'm gonna talk about this in a little while, but partial displacement must include integrated controls. Chris, this is what we came up with when it came to the schools, when we were able to integrate the heat pump, the mini splits with the integrated controls. That's what opened it up for the incentives. And we'll talk about this in a little bit, but the really push they're saying right now is instead of looking at it as doing 100% of the load, look at the real big emphasis is on the beginning part of the load, 50% and below of the load. So traditional energy efficiency, there's also, I don't think we have steam traps here. Do we have any steam traps in town? No.
Nothing on the town side.
Yeah. Water heating, there's an incentive to move from traditional to traditional propane, oil, natural gas to move to electric. So there's incentives there. Not that much, but there's also some huge incentives that's saying for pipe and tanks and valve installation as well. The only thing with this is, Chris, I think you understand this one, but basically when you have the prevailing wage, it becomes twice as expensive for doing installation as it does without it. So sometimes the incentives aren't even worth it. Type of thing.
Yep.
All right, so building management systems, I was thinking of this especially when we talked about the library, looking at a new building management system. A steam boil, hydronic boiler furnace is eligible for a schedule and occupancy, optimal start, stop, finish thing, a temperature control, a demand control. So there's a lot of things that are eligible. This is going to be replacement of a 15-year-old system, add-ons and things of that sort. So there's a decent incentives. Incentives are either, 5 or 10 cents per square foot times the number of sequences, but up to 13 sequences are eligible for this. So building management systems are eligible. I just don't know exactly how much, based on the cost of the system, how much will get paid for. Then the other incentives are for variable frequency, variable speed drives. they're saying no changes, but the big change is right here, replacement of failed bypass VFDs may now be eligible. So this is like the wastewater VFDs excluded from prescriptive offering, but may be eligible for custom incentives. So this is something new. But this would also be for like maybe the public safety building, if we're using a hot water circulating pump to go from the hot water tanks back to the prison cells, and all things like that. Those could be up ready for upgrades. There's other upgrades in there. I'm sure you guys can see up top that you're using some of those systems, but these will be available for variable speed drives. I would think that most of our usages would be in that 15 horsepower and below for us. So incentives were pretty good, I thought. So up to 50% of the project cost for these things, available for committed to between, so we have up until September 20th to commit to a project. So that doesn't give us much time, but they feel that this is going to go on through 2026 and 2027 as well. Other electric offerings are for refrigeration systems. And that's going to be the next thing out there. And I'll move this again. Hold on. And then they talk about, air source air conditioning, water evaporating cooled systems and things of that sort. So we can talk about these in a little while. Oops. And then the new thing is going to be a big push on electric lawn equipment. I thought this was really cool. Well, for homeowners, leaf blower, a lawnmower. If you look at this for a homeowner, it's for a string trimmer, it's almost a wash. The difference between a battery and a gas. For a lawnmower, if you're doing just a straight push mower, it's a wash. For self-propelled, it's about $100 difference, so $75 come back to you. For a zero-turn lawnmower, which would be for the town, so if you look at like a 42-inch zero-turn lawnmower, there's about a $2,500, $2,500 difference between a gas and electric, and you would basically get $3,500 back. And as we know, the maintenance on an electric one is a lot less than a gas one. And the same thing with string trimmers and leaf blowers. And I think we would all enjoy hearing a electric lawnmower versus a gas lawnmower or weed whacker at any time.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to, last November, I was talking to the cemetery commission. They were asking about battery powered lawnmowers.
Yeah.
For their use. Nothing really came out of that, but they were at least interested.
So
Lawnmowers, they're gonna be loud anyway. The blades are 3/4 of the noise.
okay,
Lawnmower's so quiet.
yeah, my electric is
Different styles. The commercial one has a high lift blade on it, and they make a lot of noise. So I think, good point.
Yeah, I don't have a commercial one.
Right, no, very good point. Like some of these things are silent, the little robotic ones.
Yeah,
They use a flat disc with
Yeah.
basically small razor blades on them, and
Yeah.
they're silent.
I don't know if we could do that, but that in town.
That would
that'd
be-
be- So the lawnmowers, you can't see it here, Ryan, I gotta keep moving that. Do you guys see the thing where it says, the little box for who's on Zoom on your side?
Yep.
Oh, you do? Okay. Sorry, I apologize for that.
Make
No,
it
but we can see all the slides fine.
Pitch Dave.
All right, so this is actually, like I say, the professional grade battery powered. If any of the folks in the town wanted to do this, there is actually once a year. There's a local show that they got put on where you get to drive these things, you get to play with the things and all that stuff, and you can see it. The electric lawnmowers, they talk about 8 hours of continuous use on a single charge battery. So, and that's for talking about a 42-inch zero turn. So I thought that was quite impressive.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions on incentives? All right, I'm gonna go jump into solutions. So as I talked about, the idea is that you're moving from just an AC only, if you're using a chiller for AC, to now making it as well as running it in reverse and using it for heat as well. The basic idea is to take 10 degrees out of the air and make 10 degrees with whatever you're doing, or if not more, and just run this on electricity. So here's where I was talking about, where they talked about the percentage of total load covered by doing this. So if you look at the annual decarb, they talked about the idea of looking at 50% load and below. So this is where we mentioned that you don't use the heat pump for everything. So you don't have to oversize the system. You still have a supplemental heat system to kick in when the outside temperature doesn't make sense to be running a heat pump. So when we're sitting there above and we're trying to get, it's below zero and you're trying to get heat out of it, it might not make as much sense. So therefore, you kick in the supplemental system. So they're giving a huge incentive to say, hey, 50% of your usage. That's most of the year if they look at it. 3 different kinds. They talked about a boiler, electric water heaters, and the heat pump. Of course, the boiler is the least efficient. It is, it is fairly low cost to install on there. But, the idea is, as we know, boilers, there's a lot of maintenance. You're basically doing that heat exchange through it, and it's not really efficient. Electric water heaters, it's a little bit better because you don't have the carbon emissions as much. But the idea of the heat pump is it's basically a direct source more than anything else. So how else can we decarbonize? Man, oh man, I think I gotta practice these words more. Okay. So the other thing was they talked about new and existing ventilation systems. So the idea here was it's usually not the motor or the pump that's running the fan that's going first. We also talked about the fans being incentives for variable frequency, variable speed fans. But they now talked about rooftop units and air handlers and what you can do to change that. So if we look at on the bottom right, you have the idea of how a rooftop unit works. Here, you basically have this one's doing both heat and AC, but you have a coil in there. That coil is used to mainly there's a furnace that's either heating the water or some kind of condenser or some kind of unit that's either cooling the refrigerant that's going through there. You're blowing the air across and it works really well. So they talked about what you do is you replace the 2 coils, your heat and your cooling coil, with a single heat pump retrofit, and you add a chiller unit. So the chiller unit is, as we talked about, is going to be what's going to convert the air temperature to either raise or cool the refrigerant to help with the heat. So here's an example they gave of a town hall. This town hall has 4 rooftop units, rather large town hall, but it has 4 rooftop units running, 1 for storage area, 1 for the main seating hall, and then 2 for running the offices type of thing. Lots of ductwork and all that stuff. So an example they have is now they took this and they went to 3 chiller units. So the chiller units with the 2 on the top, you're going to retrofit the air handlers on the rooftop units. You're going to use the chillers now instead of a hot water system or other system to do it. So since this is larger square footage and a more open area, and it's just basically a single room, they felt it was more efficient or more cost effective to just use the existing unit. However, when it came to the offices, they went to the idea of using a chiller with a refrigerant system. And the idea would be is the refrigerant system would be a central unit, and that unit would now control individual heads and individual offices, so that each office can now have their individual control. So you reduce here, you just eliminated all the ductwork, all the issues that you're going to have with ducting, and each individual room can get to do what they needed. So the benefits: 100% decarbonization of a building, the components 100% utilized, 100% incentivized, increased yearly operating efficiency, and the other benefits of reduced maintenance, built-in controls, They say less intrusive installations. Some pumps, people don't like the way mini splits look, but they now have the ceiling units, so it doesn't look that bad. They even have units that look like a picture frame on the wall if you really want, and type thing. So here we're gonna talk a little bit about the rooftop units. So they say decarbonization is a no-brainer. So the idea here would be is to replace as your older units that are used in the refrigeration is the R45, so becoming obsolete. And you're having to move to the R32. This is really the big push. And they talked about it as below 0 degrees or below, using it as backup heat or supplemental heat for these rooftop units. So you're not using them as much, and therefore that's where you're gonna get your biggest bang for the buck. The other things they talked about was ventilation. This was the idea of heat recovery from the ventilation units. So this might be the exhaust fans in the kitchen and areas like that. Was also a huge area that they're giving incentives to upgrade those fans and to look at getting some kind of energy recovery off of those fans. But they're looking at two ways here. One would be to move to the variable speed drives, variable frequency drives here, and also then to add that heat recovery. And then wastewater energy recovery, I didn't feel that pertained to us. I don't think we're gonna sit there and start wrapping the toilet pipes in to try to get that last degree. But this was seen more for sewer folks that were doing their own wastewater treatment plants and things of that sort. Refrigerant transitions they're talking about right now, getting the last few R410s, they're moving to the new ones. VRFs are still available, but basically R32 is moving into effect, more efficient, less refrigerant. More modern, that basically they're trying to, things that the incentives are there and the systems are getting more and more smart as we're going along. So new roof in the future, they talk about when you're gonna put a new roof in, plan for your ventilation upgrades, thinking of adding an AC or a chiller, consider a heat pump chiller. And you work with the utility partners, planning for 3 years before equipment's end of life, so we're not scrambling, and get a comprehensive building assessment. And that was everything for me. I had more slides, but I didn't want to do death by PowerPoint here. I kind of tried to do this fairly quickly. See my clock. It took away the clock.
So 7:16.
Okay, I did okay. Okay. Questions from anybody or anything like that?
Dave, I don't have a question. I have a comment and a thank you. So, thank you, first of all, for, making sure we knew that you were going to be providing this update tonight. But more so, thank you for going and getting all of this great information for us. I think a lot of this, is a no-brainer. It's just some of it is figuring out when makes sense to do certain things. But I will say that, at least in terms of developing a plan and getting ready for scoping, this is something that Chris Ruth and I were talking about, that the town doesn't have, funding set aside for how to scope these projects and even get ready for a capital project. So these are things that we have to be doing anyways. And so for the things that qualify under that first grant program, why not do them through that grant program, right? Because they have to happen anyways as we get these projects ready for capital. So thank you so much. And this has been great. So I just really appreciate you.
Okay, so I'd like to I'll give myself an action item, and that's gonna be, I'd like to schedule a meeting with Chris and Sean from National Grid. Mass Save, and let's start talking about this PPP and kind of moving this thing forward. So, finding out how we do the next steps, basically from that. I'll involve Kelly with this from the Green, and probably Matt O'Keefe from Unitil as well. I'll look to have that probably beginning of August. I'd look to have. Because by the time I got everybody scheduled for summer, it's not too much fun right now. and give you guys a chance to breathe a little bit during the summer. Does that work out okay, guys?
Yeah, that sounds good here.
Okay.
Sounds
super.
good.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, like I say, guys, you have enough to do. If anything that we can get folks to do, if the state's gonna help us. And the utilities are gonna help us, let's use them if we can. Right? Yeah. As homeowners, we paid for it.
Yeah, I mean, most homeowners get energy audits, right? Like it makes sense. The municipal buildings never had energy audits. They take energy audits.
We haven't really done a good job.
Not a comprehensive global
Yeah.
view, global approach to the whole thing.
Right, we usually will do a individual building.
Mhm.
However, we're doing that, sometimes through third parties that are looking as their incentive to do the work of the building.
Right.
Right, so this is kind of different. This is not as much, this is done not as an incentive to do the work. More to get the work, it's more of just doing it because they know the towns need it. They
Well,
need
it's
it.
to pump us to, get buildings into the program.
Yes,
They're not doing it for free, they're doing it, they've got a game plan here, but so I think it's a great idea, a great approach to it. It's like, hit the biggest users the first,
exactly.
first and move from there.
And like I say, I think the biggest thing is that, look, we don't really know. We could just guess as to which projects make the most sense. Having the professionals tell us what makes the most sense probably helps you guys on the capital plan more than anything else that as you go forward, right? I mean, when you can argue with folks saying this, folks told us this works, makes sense.
Exactly, and you've repeated it enough times that now they're gonna start asking us, has this capital project gone by Green Communities for a grant consideration
Yeah.
yet? So,
Excellent, excellent. I appreciate that. Okay, so that's kind of was my thing, guys. I'll hook you up. When I get, I'll look forward to an email. I'll put you on copy and we can coordinate a date with Sean, Kelly and Matt to start talking about this program. Chris, if Stevens, the thing that we're doing for Turkey Hill, kind of I'm gonna look to do the PPP before we do that, so we'll kind of put that on the back burner for now. And go for, let's get this together and do it right. And
Yep.
my feeling is guys, let's get ready because I think we would have spent everything from the last grant by the end of this year, which would make us eligible for applying once again in the spring for the next competitive grant. And if we can have a project ready for the spring, that would be amazing to take that money. And, that's, in fact, they say the spring grant is a lot less competitive than the fall. So, because, everybody's town budget is done for the fall. Okay, excellent. Oh, Jen, you put yourself on mute again.
it seems like the timing's gonna dovetail nicely.
Excellent, excellent. All right, guys, I'll let you, if you want, you can drop off. That's everything I had for you guys. If you have questions, you got my email, so feel free to hit me up with questions. Jen, if you want, I'm more than happy to do this, do something maybe more condensed. Just talking about the incentive programs for the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, if that makes sense to you.
Awesome, thank you, excellent.
You're welcome. Okay,
Enjoy the
Thanks a
rest of
lot,
your
Dave.
meeting.
all right, thanks.
Did they talk about the electrification, project, how the whole system isn't upgraded enough to support all the projects?
So, hold on. Okay, so I got this. Bear with me a second here. Is this the one?
So Unitil's gonna be upset with us for
Well,
taxing the lines.
Yeah, well, last year, I went to a meeting about the grid electrification upgrades, and they pretty much were yeah, they're not quite where they need to be yet to support all the things that we're being asked to do. But that was last year, so I don't know if they mentioned any updates of how that was going.
Okay, you ready?
Just turn everything up to 100,000 volts would be fine.
Let's see, where am I
It'll
going?
carry us in the next
Oh, okay.
couple of decades.
How do I do this? That is all right. Let me just do it this way. Okay, so National Grid. So they talked about National Grid,
Right.
this is yesterday's grid. You know, we all know that one well, talking about what they're moving into the future. Digitally hardened substations, you know, distribute, just kind of getting more automated, but also getting themselves better prepared for backfeeding into the grid.
So what the difference is there is battery storage.
Correct. As well as, like I say,
Mounted solar.
Vehicle storage and vehicle consumption.
Yeah, that's using the electric.
no, the idea is that, the new vehicles now will feed back to the grid.
Yeah.
So what you do is when you plug your car in, it will drain your car's battery and then start charging in the middle of the night when you have, you know, when the electric rate's low.
When you have an emergency, you need to go somewhere, you don't have any battery in your car.
Well.
That's a horrible idea. That sounds
No,
like
I mean,
a
it
horrible
doesn't
idea.
go to nothing, but that's the idea is that if you wanted to, you can backfeed.
During like peak load times, it makes sense, like you come home with a full charge from work or something, because in my office, they let you charge for free if you don't have a vehicle, so you get home. Peak demand hits the grid, a signal comes in, and takes some charge from the battery of your car. Maybe not all of it, right? Maybe like leave 25% or something, and then you have to fill it at night.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's
There's a-
interesting.
I saw in town hall the other day, a presentation on a battery storage project in town here.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, yes, it's gonna be near Keating, yeah.
Yeah, that big
Yeah,
like
yeah, over by that,
warehouse.
over by where that looks like should be an Amazon distribution center that's
Yeah.
empty is.
Yes.
Is it in
Yes.
there or near
I think
it?
it's just near it, yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that because when the planning board was redoing an energy bylaw, they were, which was last year, they were talking about making it so that they could do that.
Two
during
projects
the
like
year.
that, yeah.
So battery backup for Lunenburg?
No, so the idea, it's not really a battery backup. What it's doing is it's basically, since it's converting it first to battery and then back to electric, it's more of cleaning up the electric. So as well, you don't get the little spikes, the little surges.
So it wasn't for Lunenburg's use, it was for.
Okay.
Was my understanding.
It's fun, it's usually, I mean, through the Clean Peak program where you get incentivized to have capacity and discharge during certain signals that are sent. But yeah, the power wouldn't go to the town. It's a private,
So it is a private system, but
be privately
Correct.
developed.
Yeah, but we could do that if we wanted to, which would be by law, like have more ground mounted with batteries.
Mhm.
You know, but the houses, a lot of the like solar panel companies aren't allowing battery backup systems for a lot of the older solar systems for these houses. For on top of your house.
So the idea is that if you got your solar system installed over 3 years ago, they did not give you an inverter that was ready for battery backup. So they don't want to change the inverter
Right,
to allow you to do it. So like I knew I wanted to go battery, so I forced them to give me, it was $100 more for the one that could do battery backup. Now I can't afford the batteries, but.
yeah, and then all the requirements for like storing them, and to be in your garage behind like posts, like the.
Yeah.
yeah, lots of safety
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Powerwall, Tesla Powerwalls can just mount on the outside of the garage and stuff.
Well, no, so here they're trying to say that you have to have it, so it has to be so nothing can hit it. You know, well, yeah, so if it's in the garage, you can't, you know, you have to have a post or something that stops you from
You
being
can't
able
run
to hit it,
into it.
run into it.
Whereas on the other side of the house, you know, you're probably not driving your car
Right.
in
Next to
your
the side-
backyard,
The sidewalk.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things about that,
So here, let me just go a little bit further. Interconnection tariffs, I'm gonna skip this. They're trying to streamline the process. You know, they're talking about these constructions and projects of different things that they're doing. Study fees, so let me go right into here. So flexible interconnection, process improvements, affordability, so that they are supposed to be doing something.
yeah, the electric modernization. Yeah, so is Unitil doing this too, or just not?
Yes, so it's, well, National Grid's talking about it, but it's supposed to be across the state.
Oh,
But who knows what that means, because Unitil only has 2 towns in the whole state,
yeah.
aren't we lucky?
Yeah, is there any way that we could like switch to? national
They,
grid?
they talked about it, but that's the way the legislation divided up the state. was to give Unitil, they said that they were doing X amount percentage people before. So you get these towns, they went to the towns only.
Yeah, when does that like expire?
I have no idea on that. That's,
That'd be a great thing
Ash
to work
beers
on,
and-
getting us off Unitil.
Yeah,
Goodness.
yeah, it would be a huge help, because like what are the rates between the differences for National Grid and Intel?
Grid's still expensive right now from
yeah,
what I hear. I mean, Unitil's Grid and Eversource, I think, caught up with where our prices were back after they jacked them up a couple of years after the pandemic.
So right now.
And they haven't come down, nothing's come down.
okay. So this I wanted to go over with you guys a little bit. Okay, I don't think, as I mentioned, we're not ready as a town, but they put this new thing in called Climate Leader Communities. There's actually some I'm sorry, go back. The Green Communities was established and the idea that you were supposed to reduce your carbon footprint for the town by 30%. Okay, well, towns have accomplished that. Now, granted, I don't know how, whether they had, older buildings that became new, whether they got rid of fleets, whether they had more buildings. Well, I guess if there's more buildings, a little bit easier to do that. But some towns have accomplished it. I think we're at like 18% as all we did, all we've accomplished. I don't have the numbers now, well, and unfortunately for us, the streetlights didn't count. Because, and I'm trying to they're working on that now to change that idea, because they helped us pay for them. So why wouldn't they count towards the 30% type thing? Because that was a big, but the streetlights,
Where would that put us if they did count?
so we'd be a little over 20.
Yeah.
Because if you remember the streetlights, 50% of the charge was for maintenance of those lights.
Right.
That was the asinine thing, that if you really thought you were getting a great deal with Unitil, so, for them to change a bulb once every 5 years, you were doubling your you're doubling your bill, which was utterly insane.
It says 20% energy reduction goal there. Is that something different?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, it was 20%, and I'm sorry, 20%, we're down at like 14%. And, we'd be closer to 816. So we're not that far off.
Yeah.
No, but if you look at it, 297 out of 351 towns. Now, first of all, those 50 whatever towns, I don't know what the hell they think. Because this was free money. I don't think it cost anybody a dime when it came to the stretch code and doing improvements in your house. It only takes effect if you're doing a 1,000 square foot or more renovation to your home. That's when the stretch code would take into effect. Now, if you're doing 1,000 square foot renovation in your home, you're doing something major. And the idea of putting in better insulation would seem like a no-brainer to me, but anyway,
Basements?
because it's not a renovation. Well, it's not, it wouldn't include the basement, no. Because are you heating the basement? You're not in, is it heated already? I don't know. Well, don't pull a permit. I'm sorry.
That's hypothetical, we're asking for a friend.
Okay, all right, so this is kind of the roadmap, there's few of the climate leaders right now, it's funny how most of them are near UMass Amherst. They're out in the side of it, right there, so that was the interesting thing. Climate leaders, building the success of the green communities, let me go into it a little bit, the difference here. Green communities, this is what we had to do, as of right, citing for residential and larger solar arrays, energy efficient arrays. Adopt an expedited permitting process, we have that. Create an energy reduction plan, we had that. Purchase only fuel efficient vehicles, we don't have that many vehicles, it's been police. All the new police cruisers have become hybrids. They complain a little bit, but I think they realize, I think if we went fully electric on them, they'd have more pickup than they would realize.
Oh, yeah.
But that's okay, we're not gonna argue with them right now. And minimize the life cycle cost in new constructions, aka adopt a stretch code. The climate leaders does this, where you have to have that 2030 to 2050 plan. That's really, there's the two big things, is there's a specialized stretch code, so it's even more stringent stretch code. And there's this idea of having to start decarbonization plan with 2030 goals, 2050 goals, and things like that. They don't give you exact numbers, but you have to have a plan. And that would go to that PPP, CBA and all those wonderful things that we can participate. And then it's a electric vehicle first policy. So instead of doing hybrids, you would have to go electric. Well, the fuel efficient vehicle, you don't even have to go hybrid. You just had to do a more efficient one. So we run into that, like I'm arguing right now with the DPW, like, getting a electric truck versus a gas truck. How many miles are they putting on a day? They're not using the truck to plow. So why not go electric?
Certain vehicles you could,
Right,
other one you really probably shouldn't.
right. But there's DPWs, the directors are driving around in an F-150,
Right,
that kind of thing,
he's not doing 300-mile days.
no. Yes, and right, exactly, and if you, so it's kind of little things like that, they give us a $10,000 incentive, so that's what they're saying, is the incentive's not worth it. Right now, type of thing. Other than that, there's really no other vehicles, because everything is over the threshold for green communities. However, there's state money available for like an F3, a 1 ton and above, 1.25 ton, 1.5 ton truck and above. So if you're gonna do a 550, 650, that kind of size trucks, which would be like the dump, which would mean we would just do a larger dump truck, larger plow truck or something like that. And that they give you incentives for going more efficient on those. Okay. We talked a little bit about this, energy code adoption. I'm not gonna go into this. Climate leaders, like I say, could do the roadmap. So this is weird. They gave me the slides and you can't read the bottom of it, but that's okay. So this is more of when we're looking at new buildings, looking at retrofitting buildings, you have to have an option for zero fossil fuels. Whether that's the ground pump, whether that's the chillers or things like that, you just have to have an option that the town could be looking at. And they could say it's not cost effective, but it has to be there. I could use it, giving us with us. Yeah. And then, building envelope upgrades, that's the big one. That's the thing we really don't do a good job here. Everything you wait till there's a whole, we kind of laughed as we were here during the winter. These windows really don't close. They look good, but they don't really, nobody had them latched, so you can see the curtains moving with the breeze and all that stuff. Plus this room, it's, either too hot, too cold. It just doesn't make any sense. Kind of thing. Like a perfect location for a mini split, just for this room.
Is that just air conditioning up there?
No, that they did the split for just air conditioning because the heat's coming from those,
Big thing right
Yeah.
there.
yeah. So it's being pumped from all the way over there, all the way to here. And that's fairly new. That's new, actually.
Yeah, like I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah. So they didn't, no, it is new and they didn't come to us to look for money.
Okay.
Chris is finding that, he's finding that because of mass prevailing wage, and he has somebody in his team that's able to, this is Chris Ruth for the facility side, who's able to do the refrigerant, do the soldering and all that stuff. It's cheaper for him to just do it than to ask for the incentives.
Wow.
And that's what, but that's because of mass prevailing wage. My example was I was wrapping the pipes in the teen center, in the basement, wrapping the hot water pipes and the heat pipes. I got a quote. I jacked the quote up 50%. I got the green grant, went to get it done, said to the company, I have the green grant. He says, oh, that means mass prevailing wage. The price went up 3 times.
Wow.
And out of that, 10% of that cost was materials. The rest is now. When you pay prevailing wage, I think a painter is $80, is something like $60 an hour. $60 an hour, I'll gladly be
Yeah.
a painter. Yeah, okay,
I can do
yeah. For some reason, I haven't paid myself that, And decarbonization brought up zero over time, so end of life HVAC equipment, building renovate, it's all mom and pop stuff. That to get to this climate leader. They talk about you're gonna have this roadmap, so you'll have a roadmap out to either showing out to 2035, showing your buildings, showing checkups, showing different things that are gonna need to be done, triggering events. and different things that tell you it's time, we're gonna be doing something. This is gonna be a major event that's gonna happen, whether we're decommissioning a building or whatever we're doing. There are tools available. This is this Mass Energy Insight tool. I don't know who in town even does this. We used to have, this was John Londa, way back when. Somebody did it once. I think we have the folks, what's her name now? Kathy, is it Kathy? Anyway, the person who helps us do the grants and do the yearly report, somebody from that group does, helps us out.
If we had that energy manager, this would probably
They all fall
be
under that.
very nice.
Right.
Yeah.
So then it talks about the emission scenario, the new data pumps out this emission scenario plan of if you went. If you're moving from that gas to electric and all that stuff, how it's gonna help you. Climate leader grants, community grants are available, so. For implementing this thing, for decarbonization. On-site solar PV system for ourselves, if we wanted to ever do one ourselves. Support for geothermal, here's the big ones that we have. Tech support, there's $150,000 for just tech support to get this together and put it together. And then there's a decarbonization accelerator where you can get to up to $1 million, 10% of a project cost, up to $1 million to actually do something. And then they have the upcoming deadline. So, and then they just added a municipal school, a regional school district, because that was the problem that some of the communities had. Is that they were in a regional school. One community is part of the program, the other one's not. One community, so they did that now. So this was it for ride-on mowers, including zero turn and stand-up battery, up to 75% of the total cost of the equipment. 75%.
That's huge.
Exactly. I don't care if it's not as good, it's like, I could replace it more, yeah, so anyway.
And they have something else interesting in there on the bottom right, potential grant adder, pollinator habitat creation adder. What, did they say anything about?
I didn't say, I would have to get with Kelly on this.
Yeah, I'm curious, because
That's
that's a little bit outside of the scope of this, but we have like the pollinator habitat. I don't know if that would even.
Oh,
fall
okay.
into
Oh, on Hollis Road.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then someone, well, near the library here, they have something, and then there's like a whole like, I don't know, or name, pollinator group.
Nice.
But yeah, there's talk about it, so it'd be interesting to,
Yeah,
I can see you have here.
and then, so this is just thing, so I am on the radar, DOER is in that new, a new permitting division is being formed. Bylaws are being developed, so they're gonna have model bylaws for towns to help
Okay.
implement this.
Yep.
So that we don't have to pay a lawyer who doesn't really know what we're doing, he's doing, anything about that.
And we
And
have the bylaw redoing committee soon. That's like starting to get people, right?
I think so.
Bylaw review committee.
They're gonna talk about a bylaw review committee.
Yeah.
They do that, I think, every 4 years.
Yeah, I think that's soon. Be good to be involved in that somehow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, well, like, if they're doing like, the bylaw thing, like, we wanna make sure it all works.
No, I agree. So as an example, when it came to the solar bylaw in this town, they didn't talk to us as a green committee, which really pissed me off.
We tried in one time,
Well, we forced them to kind of
Yeah.
come to one meeting. And they had already made their mind up because, you had people screaming. This was when they were doing the one on Route 13. That solar field there. So you had the people all screaming and jumping up and down, so they pushed the bylaw in and, unfortunately, that's where you got the 20 acres. From. So basically every homeowner gets locked out of having ground-based solar more than 10K on there. So that should,
As a homeowner, you can't put in a ground mount system bigger than 10K?
if you don't have 20 acres.
No, I think they changed that
I think
last year.
they were talking about changing it. I don't know, it might have been bumped up to 15, but it's not a major number. Yeah,
I mean, the people in these giant houses often don't have a great roof line for solar, and they'd love to put something in and, they're gonna need a 20K system in some of these
Right.
houses.
Well, the other issue they're running into that now is that they did the 10K when the panels were only generating 250 watts. And now that the panels are doing 400 plus watts.
Well, panels are twice as big though, too, so.
Well, still the 3x5,
Right.
yeah, no, they're still, you know, they're more.
They did get bigger, but they
Yeah.
are much more efficient.
Yeah.
It went from 60 cell to 72 cell for standards.
Okay,
It used to always be 60 cell for residential, now they're at 72. It used to be just commercial, now they're bigger, they're more like 6 feet by 4, 6 feet by 3.5.
They're good size.
But yeah, 460 watts per module now instead of 175.
Right.
Pretty crazy.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that, we've actually had, it. We had, you know, we had the prime example we had is there was a gentleman trying to join our committee, then he realized we had no say in it, and he left, but he had 13 acres. His abutters was the community owned the land between him and then the houses. So there was no house there. And he worked for a company, I think Solar. And he wanted to put 30K in his backyard. And, you know, just looking at it as an annuity for the future. And 13 acres, and of course, the neighbors are like, not in my backyard. And it's like, and so he got nixed. Well, actually, it got worse because he came to the zoning board first. And they, you know, when you go to the zoning board, they give you a list of abutters. Well, his abutter was the community property. So it got sent to the owner of the community property, which was still the builder who had died. And the community never turned that over, so nobody was paying taxes on that land. And of course, now it came time for the planning, so the zoning board said, oh, this makes sense. 13 acres? You're not, you know, there's gonna be, nobody's gonna see this. Fine, so it went to the planning board, and of course, all the people showed up. And they said, not in my backyard, and he's trying to pull a fast one, and he's like, look, I just sent it to who they told me to. It wasn't my fault that you guys didn't change your HOA. And have this mailed to the right to an address. So, you know, they went, and the thing I was saying to him is he could have put a pink school bus. In his backyard, right at that spot. They would have noticed a pink school bus a lot more than a solar panel.
Mhm.
But
A lot of things you can do by right that people wouldn't like pig farms.
yeah, yeah. But that, so he got next, 13 acres, you're gonna have 13 acres.
Thought might have been to take it to a solar arrays, just start a pig, you know,
Yeah.
start permitting a pig farm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
well, by right, I'll do it.
So that's the whole thing. So I would like to get, you know, we would like to get involved with the thing. So a couple of things, one of the things that came out of this is they talked a little, there are a lot of incentives, like you guys, I don't know if you've looked at it, but for heat pumps. For the homes, not only just as a straight, you know, single unit for the house. But if you're gonna convert your whole house, and it doesn't have to be the full thing, it's based on that supplemental heat. As long as you have a method for it to turn over, if the outside temperature goes below a certain temperature. So, I think they were trying to say, like for the schools, I think they're gonna set it at, I think they were saying 20 degrees. Or 20, 30, I think it was, could be 20 or 30 degrees, I can't remember what the final was for the schools, but that's the idea, at 30 degrees,
Yeah.
that's when the fossil fuel system kicks on. To heat the hallways.
The majority of our winters are above 30 degrees. You know, our average winter temperature around here, I think, is 32 or 33, something in that range. So,
We just all seem to remember that.
right.
Did anyone ever mention either about compostable methane to produce electricity from
They-
different energy sources?
They did not talk about that, however, they did talk about. You hear a second?
Yes, utilities are doing like for compost and cow farms, they're installing these like compost systems that take the methane from the waste that's anaerobic bacteria digestion and making it into like either renewable natural gas or you can burn it to make electricity. And that also reduces greenhouse gases like a ton because obviously the methane is not going into the air, which produces most of our greenhouse gases naturally. I think it's a really cool idea.
So they have a new organization. That's basically this federal funds and infrastructure. Federal Funds and Infrastructure Office. So this is a office that's helping communities get federal funds for, that the federal government has for different things. So identifying and tracking key federal funding, leading, bi-weekly meetings, I haven't, and all that stuff, it's a lot. They talked about awards for considering communities with US Department of Transportation. This has to do with you guys looking at the whole idea of the, what were they talking about? There's a new MBTA thing that we just claimed 40 hours.
Payment compliance.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Is that for the low-income housing or something like that?
Well, it's the idea is you have to have an area that's gonna be high density for as a commute, folks who will not traditionally have a vehicle, so that they have a way of getting around.
Yeah, all the communities that had the train MBTA through their town, like the stops like Shirley, Fitchburg, all that they had to do this already, and then all the communities adjacent to it now have to do it. And it doesn't count towards your low income housing, it's a whole separate, like, medium density housing requirement.
Where's that gonna be?
They chose payment compliance for, what was it, Tri-Town?
Yeah, Tri-Town. So we have apartments on Tri-Town. It's the old, Tri-Town is basically the old, there used to be a Tri-Town drive in there.
Yep.
And that's what it is.
Is there a train station?
No, so the idea would be is that, so you would either go to the Leominster or Fitchburg train station from there using the MBTA buses
Oh, okay.
and things of that sort. But since we're an adjacent town and no, I'm sorry, do you know where there's a bus stop in town? I know it stops in front of Walmart, right?
There's a bus like that.
Right, but other than that, does it really go?
In
Yeah,
March.
how do you even get one? I see them pop in there once in a while, but
Yeah, you get-
never see them stop anywhere else.
Right.
I just figure that people get off once in a while at Walmart.
Yeah. So they talked, this is the big one, this 450 million multi-state award for heat pump adaptation. It's really the big push. I can't emphasize that enough. Sorry, I don't
There
mean
is a
to.
very big push on it.
Yeah.
Where I work, they're trying to get as many people on it as possible, and it used to be, it had been 100% displacement that they were looking for.
Yeah,
And some customers were having very bad winters because of that.
yes.
So they backed off on that, and they're allowing a lot more partial displacement.
So do they mention like where all this electricity is coming? I guess it's not really a big question, like where are they getting all of this energy?
Canada. No, so, think about it, we're pretty much, Unitil is probably the only one that doesn't generate any of their own electricity. Is Unitil in the state. I think the rest of them still generate somehow, whether they do wind or solar or whatever, they generate their own electricity. Municipal engagement, monthly municipal meetings, there's a partnership meeting. 2 p.m. on the July 22nd, okay. And then they had this federal funds and infrastructure office community tour. It made no sense what direction they went, because they went Pittsfield, Worcester, Haverhill, then down to Brockton, then to Boston, then out to Springfield, then to Gloucester. But that's you being as energy efficient as possible.
Yeah, right.
So. And then this was the other one, matching funds they're starting to do. So if you qualify for federal funds, the state's giving matching funds on top of that. And then, this is just some state agencies, municipalities and things like that. And I can send you guys all these presentations, not a problem at all.
Yeah. Are they anticipating that federal funds will continue to exist?
Yeah. They are too. Then we got open grants. Here we go, open grants. So buses and bus facilities, as we talked about, products there. Rural and tribal assistance pilot program. This was federal funds, by the way, Bill. So I don't know if we can make that. Port infrastructure. I guess we can we put the dock at Whale Lake as a port? And then public works programs. was more for, this was. I guess I didn't see anything open that was gonna be earth shattering for us, other opportunities and that other stuff like that. That's it, that was it. So I can send, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send a link, there's like this, here, if I look at it this way. Hopefully this pops up, here we go, yeah. So this was the summit, but they had like a welcome and things like that, decarbonization and heat pump solutions, case studies, state funding opportunities that we talked a little bit about, new construction, which I didn't get into at all because I didn't think anything here is being planned. There's nothing planned in this town for new construction for a while. That was for municipalities, how National Grid is planning for and supporting electric vehicle charging station program. I don't think we're putting that in town, so I didn't really go into that as much. Okay, but I'll send you this thing for the link to, if you want to go through it.
That's most of it in there.
Oh, there, most of
All
it,
the slides.
all the slides are gonna be in there. That's the link to all the slides. Some of these are like 60-slide presentations. So I kind of tried to condense and just get the next one is supposed to be in October at, and down at Gillette. So, and that one's actually open to businesses too. So that's supposed to be that big one. They're gonna roll out some new program for businesses. So I don't know for both of you guys for work-wise, whether it be, that's something interesting. That thing.
Be interesting if we can get there, or if I can get there, it'd be,
Right, as soon as I hear that, I'll say, I mean, look, yeah, hey, it's a free lunch out of the deal, bunch of swag, they had like, in fact, the other side of it, they had folks, what's the Nancy Kerrigan, Rise? So they had people like
yeah,
that,
maybe, yeah.
they had people like that do the installations, all that,
Yeah.
and same thing, they said they'll have somebody come. Do a whole audit for the town. And the idea would be they would be getting, them or their subcontractors would get the projects. And so there's a couple people like that, but they had Daikin, Mitsubishi, and a couple of other folks there, all at this little summit at Holy Cross. My first time at Holy Cross, so I was pretty excited, so.
That's interesting.
I didn't have time, so, John, welcome, I would like to, you got a quick introduction for the rest of the team. I don't know if you might want to tell these folks what who the heck you are, give your soapbox thing.
I don't know, I mean, I just moved to town, a few months ago. But have been sort of close by for a long time. I grew up in Acton. I've been in the solar industry since 2005. So now I work for a company that develops, solar battery projects. So I'm very familiar with like how they interact with the grid. I don't have solar in my home yet, but eventually I might. I mean, we don't really do residential stuff, but I've my background, I have a master's in environmental policy. And so I've always been interested in sort of the policy side of things and like the more, public side of things, but it's spent the last 20 years just like learning about the, renewable energy and energy efficiency industry. I started my career actually doing energy audits. I used to work for a company, and I was certified to do, Energy Star rating, HERS rating, stuff like that on building envelope and air sealing insulation, stuff like that. And then eventually moved into doing more solar. I've been doing that ever since. I've been working for a local company called Borrego Solar since 2007. Now we're New Leaf Energy. We just do development. So we just develop sites. Usually we do like landfills, or we do like we're doing a lot of like battery storage in New York City right now. So like developing small sites in Staten Island into 5 megawatt energy storage facilities. All the permitting, all the design, engineering, figuring out what to do with the energy, and then we sell those projects to people that build them and operate them. So I don't have any sort of like interest from my company to try and do any projects or anything like that. I just like really feel like it'd be great to be part of, the voice of the community and bring my knowledge and experience to try and help make good decisions.
Very good.
That's it, yeah.
So just to give a little history here, with the Green Community, we've been a Green Community since 2013.
Yeah.
Okay, the Green Committee the committee was established 5 years earlier. The original committee was established by the planning department in town. Original committee had 3 builders and an architect on it. All believed that nobody would pay for a house that had to have, pay the extra money for a house that had to be stretch code. So for 3 years, they basically nixed it. They all started to leave the committee. I got by attrition to become the chair. So I got to push it. 2013, we formally became a green community. I think the amount of dollars that's impacted to anybody is actually zero, because, you know, the stretch code kind of went away for years because they, you know, they didn't upgrade it enough,
Mm.
or they made it so it was too ridiculous. So, you know, that's the whole thing. They have to make a house more, hit the stretch code, more energy efficient. And as I mentioned earlier, it only affects if you're doing 1,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Type of thing. Or actually, it's 50% or 1,000 square feet.
And
So
so,
whichever is large, you know, whichever is larger.
so being in,
It's first, kind of.
So in other words, if you have a 3,000 square foot home, it would be 1,500 square feet. You had to affect.
Oh.
If I remember right.
so by being a green community, you mentioned something about an allotment earlier. There's like funding that revolves every year for doing energy efficiency projects and stuff like that.
Correct. So there was great, there's the original grant, you were having a grant up to $250,000 to help do these energy efficient upgrades
Mhm.
in town. After that, you went into a phase of competitive grants. So now you compete against every other community that's a green community in the state for the amount of money that's available for your, so that, you know, the programs had to be a little bit more stringent. We're allowed up to $225,000 per grant. I think this last grant, yeah, and so the last one we did is the mini splits at the primary school.
Yeah.
I'll get into that a little bit, but the one before that was converting the streetlights to LEDs with dimmers. I don't know if you've ever seen the dimmers go up. So at midnight, the lights dim to 50% in town till 5 a.m. And I even asked, my neighbor is a overnight police officer. And I said, what do you think about the street lights dimming? And he says, what do you mean? Right, because, you know, do you really notice it? It's LED.
Yeah.
You really notice 50% with an LED.
So like every year, it sounds like there's a fall and a spring grant, that those are through the green communities.
Correct.
For DOER. And so you have to put specific projects up for those
Correct,
grants. Yeah.
correct, yes.
And then the only other thing I was
It's all
wondering,
set a big.
there was a mention of fines for CO2, like, does that apply to the towns? Towns paying fines for CO2? It was in the slide deck.
They're talking about it, but that's, you know, we're not,
We don't have.
it's more because it's more for this, more the city side, where if you had buses and lots of vehicles and all that stuff, they're looking at trying to do something where forcing them to go, you know, lower the CO2 emissions. Because you had, I mean, I was on the other side. I was in the chip world, selling to guys developing electric vehicles.
Yeah.
And, you know, electric cars, everybody who wants an electric car, you know, because they want it to be green has already got it.
Right.
Now, how do you do the next wave? Now you have all the people who are scared of the, distance, range, the range fear,
anxiety.
the range anxiety, and just don't understand the whole thing.
Yeah.
However, if a city like New York say, listen, we need every delivery vehicle, every taxi, every limo, every bus to be electric,
Yeah,
or else you can't come in. It's gonna happen.
Yep.
Right? You know, UPS is not gonna stop delivering to New York City
Yeah.
type of thing. And so that's what we see first. We see that the next big wave is gonna be municipal stuff, like,
Yeah.
you know, California is making a new thing where every lawnmower, weed whacker and things like that are now have to be electric, that the towns buy.
Mhm.
Oh, wow. All right, that's gonna be huge. I mean, that's gonna tip the whole industry over.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's what you're gonna see as a residential then. You'll start to see the residential one. You know, you could probably be out there for 8 hours with your weed whacker if you really wanted to be.
I've been looking at one of those autonomous lawnmowers that just drives around your yard
Yeah.
for you. It's
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah, they've got a few very interesting
Yeah.
models of those.
I still like sitting on my.
I enjoy it. I enjoy doing it too, but like, it is pretty weird.
Yes, so to give you an example, like, so the idea was is this primary school has many splits. They did a first project. They went to the town and they got funding for it. We went to them and said, get us involved, get us involved, get us involved. They didn't get us involved, so they just got like, I think it was like 12 mini splits, paid like $600,000 for the thing. It was some stupid number. The second time around, we said to look, we can get you more units at a lower cost if you get us involved. Like less than 60 days before the grant would have to be submitted, they finally said, okay. And that's when we talked about pulling it into the management system they already had. So they were just using them for mini splits for AC only. They weren't never gonna use them for heat.
Yeah.
And so we had to go through the education process. Luckily, we had somebody, she just left the school system. But she actually had a dual major of mechanical engineer and education.
Oh, wow.
And she had worked for Carrier in Connecticut, so she was able to understand the whole idea of mini splits and heat. And was able to say, this makes sense, type of thing. Because, and that's what we have. We have teachers complaining, this room's cold, that room's hot.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how
That's the
we,
perfect solution,
exactly,
right?
exactly. There's no way I'm gonna be able to put baffles in to deal with that.
I've got mini splits in my house and I love them.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't even run them on AC mode, just run them on the dry mode. It just
That's
keeps
what I
it
do,
perfect,
my
yeah.
conditioners, just dry.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been 90 degrees, it's been totally fine in the house. Leave it at 75, leave them on dry mode, and perfect in there.
Mhm.
They like them.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I try to convince people of that.
Yeah.
We do.
Dry
Yeah.
mode or an air conditioner, huh?
Yeah, it's just the desiccant mode, the dehumidification mode, and it keeps it super cool in there. And
Yeah.
it doesn't run the compressor nearly as much.
Wow.
It's, yeah.
The guy who installed it told me that. He's like, yeah, trick is leave all three of them running. They're designed to work together in the house. Leave the doors open because we have like one upstairs and then two downstairs. And leave the doors all open and just run them on dry and don't turn them off. If you turn them off and it gets hot, that's when it takes a lot of energy to bring it back down. So
Right.
just leave them on. And electric bill's been okay so far, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just gotta get to the solar panels.
Well, I mean, my house is like, I got a gambrel and it's at different angles and stuff, and then I have some beautiful trees that I really don't wanna cut down. I don't really have room for a ground mount, so we developed that project on 13 a while ago, the next aunt bought, so.
Oh, yeah.
I'll buy a share of that.
Okay, so actually that was the project.
Yeah.
We as the committee said that project, whatever the distance was, width was.
Yeah.
You had to have double that
Set.
on either side as a setback.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we proposed as the Green Committee, which made sense because now you can't, you gotta put it in the middle.
Yeah,
And then if you want to expand, you can only go so far.
Yeah.
Well, no, one of the neighbors was screaming up and down. He says, I want 200 feet, I want 200 feet. So they said, fine, 200 feet. They put it exactly on the 200, right? It was put 200 feet from the houses there.
Yeah.
And then he complained, he could see it. I'm like, well, it would have been further away.
yeah,
But anyway, and it would have been now, because now that system could expand
Mhm.
over that whole field if they wanted to. I don't know if it's ever expanded.
yeah, they have to redo the interconnection, like you have a 5 megawatt cap on the interconnection. in
Oh, okay.
Massachusetts.
Okay,
Yeah, but no, that's an example, so my company developed that project,
gotcha.
and we sold it to Nexamp, who then built it and owns it now.
So were you also the Twin City, one next to the church? Oh, okay.
But Electric Ave, we did, that was,
Okay.
Borrego who developed that.
Okay. Actually. Yes, okay, because we actually talked to you about the streetlights.
Maybe, yeah,
Yeah, a different division, but yeah.
Yeah.
Guy out of California. Type of thing.
oh, yeah. I remember that, yeah.
Okay. So, things like, so that, happy, we really appreciate if you'd like to join.
Yeah.
These guys know we're once a month.
Yep.
This one went a little long, but my deal is, I asked you to give me an hour and a half. If I'm still babbling, after an hour and a half, you're welcome to say motion to adjourn. I shut my mouth and we leave, okay? Have you ever been to a conservation committee?
I mean, planning board, zoning board, conscom,
Conservation's the marathon. Conservation's the marathon. You ever been to conservation?
Been to so many.
Not in a long time.
The one in here it was Zoom only and it was 4 hours.
You do what you love. and you never
I've been to it before, but that was decades ago.
Yeah, so no problem there, but that's, look at thing, the big push is gonna be this, August. I wanted to, let's get the thing for the committee is gonna be to push this whole idea, this townwide plan.
Yep.
And getting something in place, if that's all we can get accomplished, for issue we've had is been that nobody talks to us until we hear about it and go after it. They started to tell us something about capital, but it's like here, they're planning on doing a new building control and a new system in here. And it's like, guys, we can get your money. Or, you know, the state, there's money available.
We have meetings here once a month.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. We try to have it here because these chairs are comfortable.
Right,
And
they are comfortable.
So, yeah, but sometimes we have to meet at the planning board, in this upstairs of the planning board.
Yeah.
So, but as I said,
With our new town manager and a lot of the facility directors and everything now, we used to not have some of those people, so I'm hoping that
Yes.
that makes the communication better. Because Jen's very active in
Yes.
all of these.
yes, so she's been there, yeah, and we went through basically a year with nobody. And the woman before was good at helping push us, however, she wasn't strong with telling the town boards to make sure they came to us. And that's been the big thing. So, you know, capital plans definitely needed, and, you know, there's things you can do. As I said, the police can complain, but they're only getting hybrid vehicles now, type of thing. And it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Why not? I mean, what are they doing? They're sitting there. Half the time they sit there idle.
We don't have like high-speed chases going on
Right.
in freeways.
No, but still, even what's a high-speed chase gonna be,
Yeah,
right? You know, you have a radio
right,
to tell somebody.
the
Right,
helicopter.
the next time they're gonna be in there.
Yeah.
seconds
You just
anyways.
chase them into Shirley and then you're done for the day.
But he does say it has enough pickup to catch somebody coming out of like bed rocks or on the rocks. And and when he, you know, he basically just sits there waiting for them when they're stupid, you know, and we're on the wrong side of the road or something
Yeah.
like that. And so, yeah, but things like. All right, guys, I hope presentation, I thought, you know, next time I'll let you know ahead of
Sounds
time.
great.
It was a good meal. They did have a good meal, got some good swag and things like that. And, you know, everybody isn't that why you go to those things, it's for the swag, so, and things like that.
Yeah, I'll plan to come if that's okay with you guys. I don't know what the process is, but I'd love to be part of it.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna have you ever filled out one of the town, I'll send you an email, but there's a town talent bank form
Okay.
that you need to fill out. Once you fill that out, you're on the list, notorious on the list, but I'm gonna be meeting with them. I'm letting Jen get a little bit feet wet, but we have another gentleman, a young gentleman. Oh, sorry, I forgot about that. Gave me an update on he applied for a grant for the styrofoam,
Okay, yeah.
okay?
Tyler?
Tyler, thank you so much. I was trying to say Trevor. So Tyler, and I wasn't Trevor, but Tyler applied for the grant, so he's just waiting to hear on the grant. The idea is that he worked with this younger gentleman. Okay, worked with the new manager at Hannaford. And what he's coming up with is a large styrofoam recycler. So you know how like you buy a TV or a refrigerator, and you have that big styrofoam?
Mhm.
And how do you get rid of it in Lunenburg? Besides burn it? Is, you know, and that's the idea, right? Either that or you pay for the big bags. Right, and then you're paying $10 to get rid of styrofoam. So the idea would be is to have a styrofoam recycling available at Hannaford. And someplace would come and pick it up. So he's trying to get a grant for the dumpster. That Hannaford be used to collect.
Yeah, they like recycle the styrofoam and use it to make stuff.
Make
They like
stuff.
sell it, like they give like a raw material that's used to like
Decking or something.
things, you know?
Yeah, like basically they reduce it down to the pellets,
Pellets, yeah.
right? So you have different colored pellets and all that stuff, so.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Did the school start to install those HVAC upgrades?
So they started with the HVAC upgrades. They were supposed to do. I should ask Chris, but they were supposed to do coring this week. This week is coring. Drilling holes through the cement. And therefore the systems will be installed next week. He's gotten the refrigeration go ahead to do the 3 refrigerations, so do the upgrade of the refrigeration system at all 3 schools. And that's supposed to happen before school starts, by the end of August. And then we'll be done with all the grant stuff. And then we'll be able to apply for the next one. We just have to get our act together to do that this time. So that's what we've had, is we've had the problem we've had is that it's like, how do we as a group find programs? Because
Yeah.
I can't walk around buildings. I don't really have the insight as to what their energy usages are, how old the systems are.
Yep.
So, you know, we would have to look towards the facilities directors to do that. They,
Comprehensive audit would be an amazing thing.
Yeah.
exactly,
Perfect.
Yeah.
exactly. Then it's easy. Then it's easy. Then it's just more managing the project.
Then you just prioritize things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing idea.
It really is.
Yeah. But I have to say,
I also looked into the committee, do we know about last time, of like how there's too many of us on the same year term expiry?
oh, yeah,
I looked into that. I actually looked at those at town hall, I was like putting around while this is doing something, and I found our mailbox. It
oh,
had a lot of stuff in it. which was
Really?
Helpful for this, yeah, because I found everybody's initial like swearing in
Yes.
carbon copy. So I got everyone's dates except for yours. Yours wasn't in there.
Oh.
Cause yeah, according to the charge, we have 2 3-year, 2 2-year, and 1 1-year appointments after our initial thing. So it's gonna be 2 people on 1-year frequency, probably 1 on 2, like on another one and 1 on another one. Unless there's like a way that it all matches up, because there's 3 of us that are all expiring in 2027. I don't know
Okay.
if that's possible.
I look at it as they probably just did it. Well, who knows how it did it, because, I got no idea.
Yeah, it's me, you, and Chris, all expire in 2027.
Okay. Well, Matt just
Not
expired
just expired,
and
yeah.
he just re-upped. I think it's a 3-year, I think we're all in that 3-year plan or 4-year,
Yeah,
3-year plan now.
yeah, I just don't know if like maybe mine was done wrong. I can look at it more, but
I
I
didn't
just,
even know there was a mailbox, by the way.
there's fun stuff. in there. I put it all back in, so you can be able to look at it. It's gonna be our town
Now
hall.
one more trip, is it town hall?
Yeah, town hall.
Ritter
It's
building at town hall,
a-
okay.
So you go into town hall, you go straight through the hallway and you hit the town clerk or whatever in the back
Yeah.
there. So you take a left and then the first left and it's like the mail room and we have our little slot.
Wow, all right, I'm gonna have to go down there. Wow, you learn something new about your town every day. Holy cow.
Like, you know,
Alright.
creep around and do stuff. So yeah, I found that out, so we can figure it out if we need to, but
Okay,
I did that.
cool.
Did we look at meeting minutes? We have 2 to look through.
I know, I didn't look at it. Did you look at meeting minutes at all? I mean, I was okay with it. I read them at there.
I glanced at them, but I don't know, I read through them a
Actually,
little bit. I don't
okay.
remember any of it.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes.
From April 7th.
Second.
and June 2nd.
Yes. Okay, oh, favorite?
I-
Is Dave still here?
No, Dave's not there,
Okay.
but we got our free, so we got a quorum.
Great.
Alright.
I wanted to make sure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, oh, I'm sorry, roll call vote. Yeah,
No,
Dave-
you don't.
Dave's not there.
Great.
Okay,
That makes sense.
alright, you'll, as you know, this meeting, this will never be a formal meeting. It's at all. I've given up on those, I can't stand them, but that's okay. Excellent, excellent. Excellent, all right, I'm gonna entertain a motion.
Second,
All of it, roll call.
well,
It's not here, we don't need.
That's right, okay, all right,
Perfect, so
appreciate,